Today, we're going to talk about Charlton Heston, who's an icon of the last century. Not only is he an extraordinary actor that was this colossus, actors were like he-men. He was sort of riding a chariot and playing Caesar in kind of films about the Roman Empire. He was also in Planet of the Apes. And then he became extremely right-wing, was president of the National Rifle Association in America, a kind of quietly terrifying person to have to photograph. He said, "I'll give you my gun when you pry it from my cold, dead hands." I should have been kind of more on my game. I should have been a little bit less complacent. I was photographing him with his wife, who was called Lydia. At the time, I was kind of, the cock of the north. I was kind of like, everything was going my way. I was getting all these amazing jobs. So I wasn't really prepared. I didn't do any research. I had this perception of him from being in all these Hollywood movies and so on, but I didn't think about what type of person he would be. And so when I turned up, the atmosphere was wrong. Lydia, his wife, was really, really nice. And the huge mistake I made, which is so laughably ridiculous now, was not to kind of find out what people called him. Any normal person would assume that if his name is Charlton Heston, that you would call him Charlton. Charlton, can you move your...
Charlton? That's his name.
I know, but he was getting more and more angry.
Right.
He was looking at me. It was like the KD Lang situation. I couldn't work out, I was getting on with his wife. She was too maybe she was a bit recessive and subservient and didn't want to sort of tell me or him that I'd made a mistake. But I found out afterwards that everyone calls him Chuck. And I was going, Charlton, yeah. Charlton, in a really sort of a bit English camp way.
Right.
And he was getting more and more angry. And the pictures are rubbish. And also, it was one of those situations when he was so handsome when he was a young man. He was kind of the embodiment of masculinity, in his time. And then I don't think he was really very happy about being old and didn't really enter into the whole process of being photographed because he knew, maybe a bit like Marianne Faithfull, that his best pictures were behind him.
Well, a lot of people were talking about that video, saying
yeah.
Just because you're older doesn't make you less in your peak.
That's a fair comment.
What's your response to that?
Well, I think that's an extremely fair comment. And if I had my time again, I listed it all wrong as well. I used redheads.
Is this for Marianne?
No, this is Charlton Heston. So the studio was getting hot. The redheads are sort of tungsten lights and everything was getting hot. Everyone was hot and bothered. I was calling him Charlton. It just ended before it even began. And the pictures are just really poor and awkward. And they look like they were taken in the 1950s. If I had my time again, I would sort of celebrate that craggy face and maybe persuade him. I probably would struggle to persuade him to come into some interesting available light and sort of explore the experience that was there as a map to his life on his face. And as people commenting were right to comment, I do personally think it's really important to kind of not be ageist and actually celebrate age and how people look when they're old, and you can make a very compelling picture in that situation. Anyway, I fucked it up. And I'm only getting these out. They're not available for syndication. I never gave them to Getty because they're just poor pictures. But I think it's important if you're aspiring to be a photographer to see that, you don't hit a home run every time. Sometimes, through your own complacency or individual circumstance, or calling someone who likes to be called Chuck, Charlton, whatever the reason is, sometimes you don't get it.
And who was it shot for?
For the Observer.
And did you give them the pictures?
Oh, absolutely. They ran the piece. It was fine. Yeah, I mean, I picked up my gear, and sort of stumbled onto the next job and, did a better job.
Redeemed yourself.
And redeemed myself, yeah.
Can you think of any other shoots that might have gone as badly as this one?
In fact, what I can do is think of another person that we're going to do a video on, Michael Stipe, who was instrumental in me as a man, as a member of the bald community, in accepting myself, because I think of all the cool people, all the bald people that I admire, he's probably the coolest and the most at one with who he is. And I think he kind of is also somebody who, as he's got older, he just looks spectacular. He's just so cool.
Okay.
And I shot him for his first.
We'll go on to that, onto the next video.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Dad's been desperate to do a video on baldness. He's had a few comments, and we'll let him do it next video.
Yeah.